Have you ever felt like you were living a life that wasn't truly yours? Like every decision you made, your career, your relationships, even your beliefs, was shaped by something outside of you? What if I told you that most people are trapped in an invisible system, following a script they never wrote and mistaking it for free will? Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that is exactly what happens. People drift through life on autopilot, unaware that their deepest desires, their fears, even their sense of identity, are nothing more than echoes of something far older than themselves. But here's the truth. The day you finally choose yourself, everything will change. Not just in theory, not just in small ways, but in ways that will completely shift your reality. When you break free from the conditioning that has shaped your mind, you will see the world differently. The people around you will respond to you differently. And most importantly, you will finally feel the weight of all the expectations, the fears, the self-doubt begin to lift. But for that to happen, you need to confront what's been holding you back, and most of it isn't even yours. This is not just about psychology. This is about the deep mystical connection between the self and the universe. When you finally step into your truth, you don't just change yourself, you send a ripple through the entire collective. And in today's video, we are going to break this down step by step, from the unconscious forces shaping your reality to the hidden power of individuation, from the shadow self to the illusion of control. We are going to unravel the forces keeping you stuck and, more importantly, show you how to break free. But before we dive in, I have a question for you. Do you feel like you are truly living as your authentic self? Or do you sometimes catch yourself playing a role, following a path that no longer feels right? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you resonate with this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. Most people who watch these videos are not subscribed. And if you want to keep diving into deeper truths about the mind, the self, and the universe, make sure you don't miss out. Now let's begin. From the moment we take our first breath, society begins its work, shaping, molding, and conditioning us to believe that prioritizing ourselves is wrong. We are taught that seeking our own well-being is selfish, that choosing ourselves is a betrayal of those around us, and so a pattern emerges. We smile when we don't want to, we say yes when everything inside us screams no, and we carry the weight of others' expectations like a cross we were never meant to bear. But here's the truth. Denying yourself to fit into someone else's mold does not make you righteous. It makes you a prisoner. This is the great deception. Self-sacrifice, when stripped of authenticity, becomes a slow erosion of the soul. The Bible tells us in Galatians 5:1, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." Yet, how many live enslaved to the approval of others? How many trade their authenticity for acceptance, believing that their worth is measured by how much they give and how little they take? Jesus himself, though the embodiment of love, never lost himself to please the crowds. He withdrew to pray when he needed to, Luke 5:16, rebuked those who misunderstood his mission, Matthew 16:23, and even turned away those unwilling to walk the path he laid out, John 6:66. If the Son of God did not betray his purpose for the sake of others, why do we believe we must? But the grip of this lie goes deeper. Many have been led to believe that their suffering makes them noble, that self-neglect is a sign of holiness. They wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, convincing themselves that their sacrifices will earn them divine favor. Yet the universe, in all its divine wisdom, does not reward those who abandon themselves. In fact, Jesus commanded us to love your neighbor as yourself, Mark 12:31, a statement often quoted but rarely understood. The key here is as yourself. If you do not love yourself, how can you truly love another? If you do not value your own existence, how can you teach others to value theirs? Carl Jung spoke of the necessity of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, not who the world expects us to be. Spirituality is not about erasing yourself. It is about finding yourself beneath the layers of conditioning that have told you who you should be. It is about recognizing that the divine spark within you is not ignited through self-erasure, but through self-acceptance. Even Jesus, before beginning his ministry, spent 40 days in the wilderness, Matthew 4:1-11, a period of solitude, a time to separate himself from external voices and align with his divine purpose. This is the path of true spiritual awakening, not living by the world's script, but stepping into the fullness of who God created you to be. And so the question remains, when will you choose yourself? The moment you do, everything will shift. The universe responds to those who stand in their truth. The moment you choose to walk in alignment with your soul, doors will open that were once invisible, paths will clear where there were only obstacles, and the weight of years of self-denial will finally lift. But how can we make that choice when our minds are not entirely our own? That is where Jung's greatest insight comes into play. From an early age, we are conditioned to seek validation outside ourselves. We are taught that prioritizing our own well-being is selfish, that sacrificing personal desires for the sake of others is a virtue, and that true worth is measured by how much we can give, not by how aligned we are with our own essence. This conditioning shapes the foundation of a life where people suppress their deepest truths, betraying their own nature to fit into societal molds. And so, an invisible contract is formed. In exchange for external approval, we abandon ourselves. But what is the cost of this trade? A life spent chasing expectations that were never ours to begin with. Carl Jung warned that self-denial, when imposed by external forces rather than arising from genuine choice, leads to fragmentation. The persona, the mask we wear for society, becomes stronger, while the authentic self recedes into the unconscious, suppressed and unheard. Over time, this dissonance manifests as frustration, anxiety, and a deep sense of disconnection from the universe. We look outward for answers, searching for meaning in external achievements, relationships, and societal roles, only to feel an unshakable emptiness that no amount of external validation can fill. Yet the paradox is striking. We are told that self-sacrifice is noble, but in reality, a person who constantly suppresses their own essence does not become more virtuous. They become resentful, exhausted, and detached from their own spiritual path. True alignment does not come from denying oneself, but from understanding the delicate balance between personal growth and collective harmony. When we operate from a place of self-betrayal, we are not actually serving others. We are perpetuating cycles of inauthenticity, where people expect from us what we are not capable of truly offering. Philosophers throughout history have questioned this false dichotomy between selfishness and selflessness. Nietzsche argued that self-overcoming, the conscious evolution of the individual, requires an unshakable commitment to one's inner truth. To deny oneself in order to conform is to reject the very force that drives transformation. Meanwhile, Eastern traditions emphasize the importance of balance. Taoist philosophy teaches that forcing oneself into roles that contradict one's essence disrupts the natural flow of energy, creating stagnation rather than harmony. The universe is not in opposition to individual fulfillment. Rather, it expands through it. A soul in alignment radiates authenticity, and from that space, genuine connections and meaningful contributions emerge effortlessly. So what happens when one dares to prioritize their own path? When the chains of external expectations are broken, a profound shift occurs. The mystical connection between the self and the universe realigns, and doors that once seemed closed begin to open. Opportunities appear where there were only limitations, and clarity replaces the confusion that once clouded every decision. But before we can step into this reality, we must first address the unseen forces that dictate our choices, the ones we do not consciously recognize. And that is where Jung's greatest insight comes in. Most people believe they are making their own choices, shaping their lives according to their desires and beliefs. But are they really? Jung revealed a profound truth. Much of what we call our will is nothing more than an echo of something far older, something deeply embedded in the very fabric of human existence, the collective unconscious. This vast, unseen realm holds the myths, symbols, and patterns that have shaped human behavior for millennia. It operates beneath awareness, guiding thoughts, reactions, and decisions without the individual even realizing it. The question is not whether we are influenced by it, but how much of what we believe to be ours is actually inherited from the collective mind. Throughout history, societies have passed down narratives that define what is acceptable, what is desirable, and what is forbidden. These narratives become invisible laws, dictating everything from career choices to relationships, from morality to self-perception. Many live under the illusion of free will, yet find themselves walking predetermined paths that have been laid out, long before they were even born. Jung compared this to a river. Those who remain unaware of the unconscious currents are carried by them, unable to distinguish their own direction from the force that pulls them. It is only through deep self-exploration that one can learn to swim against the tide, questioning the origins of their beliefs and recognizing which impulses are truly theirs. Nietzsche foresaw this struggle as well. He spoke of the herd mentality, the silent force that compels individuals to conform, to fear standing apart, to suppress the raw essence of their being in favor of what is deemed acceptable. In doing so, many sacrifice their individuality at the altar of social belonging, trading their inner truth for external validation. But the cost of this bargain is high. Those who never break free from collective conditioning remain trapped in cycles of frustration, feeling as though something is missing without ever knowing exactly what. The mystical connection between the individual and the universe weakens when one's soul is clouded by inherited patterns. Spiritual traditions across cultures have spoken of the need to awaken from this unconscious slumber. In Buddhist philosophy, Maya represents the illusion of reality, the veil that keeps individuals from seeing beyond the constructs imposed upon them. To transcend this illusion is not to reject society entirely, but to navigate it with awareness, to see the hidden strings and decide, consciously, whether or not to move with them. The same principle appears in esoteric traditions, where initiates undergo a process of shedding societal programming to uncover deeper, universal truths. The mystical journey of individuation is not about rebelling for the sake of rebellion, but about remembering who one was before the world told them who to be. But how does one escape the invisible pull of the collective unconscious? The first step is awareness, learning to recognize patterns that feel like instinct, but are in fact inherited beliefs. The second step is observation, watching one's own reactions, questioning their origins, tracing them back to their roots. And finally, the most difficult step, choosing to step outside the current, to move differently, to redefine oneself beyond the limits imposed by the past. Yet, this is where the greatest resistance emerges. The unconscious mind does not relinquish control easily, and those who break free often face internal and external opposition. This is where the next challenge begins, the battle with the shadow self. There are parts of ourselves that we hide, not just from the world, but even from our own awareness. These are the aspects that don't align with how we wish to be perceived, the impulses we suppress, the emotions we deny. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the repressed dimension of the psyche where everything we reject about ourselves is stored. But ignoring the shadow does not make it disappear. Quite the opposite. It festers, influencing our actions from beneath the surface, manifesting in unexpected ways. We think we have control, but the shadow finds its way through projection, self-sabotage, and unconscious patterns. What we refuse to face within, we inevitably encounter outside. This is why certain people irritate us for no apparent reason. The traits we despise in others often reflect aspects of ourselves that remain unacknowledged. A person overly annoyed by arrogance may, deep down, struggle with their own suppressed need for recognition. Someone intolerant of authority may secretly fear their own power. These external triggers are mirrors, revealing the disowned fragments of the psyche. Until one understands this, life becomes an endless battle with external enemies that are in reality projections of inner conflicts. Spirituality is not about eliminating the shadow, but about integrating it, transforming it from a destructive force into a source of strength. Jung believed that failure to integrate the shadow leads to a fragmented existence. People become trapped between their carefully constructed persona, the face they show to the world, and the hidden self, which remains unprocessed in the unconscious. The more they cling to an idealized image of themselves, the more energy is required to suppress what does not fit that image. But repression has a cost. Suppressed emotions do not vanish. They morph into anxiety, depression, and compulsions. A person disconnected from their shadow is a person disconnected from their own vitality, unable to access the raw creative force that lies beneath the surface. Philosophers have long warned about the dangers of denying one's darker aspects. Nietzsche argued that true strength does not come from avoidance but from confrontation, the courage to face one's internal chaos without retreating into comforting illusions. Eastern traditions echo this sentiment, with Taoist philosophy emphasizing the necessity of embracing both light and dark, understanding that balance is achieved not by rejecting one side, but by harmonizing the two. The universe itself is built upon this duality, the interplay of opposing forces, neither good nor evil, but complementary aspects of a greater whole. To integrate the shadow is to reclaim power. This is not about indulging destructive tendencies, but about recognizing them, understanding their origins, and transmuting them into wisdom and authenticity. The individual who has confronted their darkness stands unshaken by external forces, no longer a puppet of unconscious fears or societal expectations. But this path is not for the faint of heart. It requires brutal self-honesty and a willingness to let go of old identities. And yet, it is only by walking this path that one can truly awaken. But how can one break free from the unconscious scripts that govern daily existence? That answer lies in understanding the illusion of control. Most people walk through life believing they are in control. They think their choices are deliberate, their actions intentional, and their paths self-determined. But if they were to stop for a moment, truly stop, and observe their lives from a distance, they would see something unsettling. They are not leading their lives, they are being led by them. Like a river flowing within invisible walls, their decisions follow a course shaped long before they became aware of it. The careers they pursue, the relationships they choose, even their desires, all of it heavily influenced by forces they do not consciously recognize. Carl Jung warned of this when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Society functions on repetition. From childhood, individuals are taught routines, expectations, and belief systems. The collective unconscious dictates what is considered normal, what should be pursued, and what must be avoided. Those who conform find stability at the cost of self-awareness. Those who challenge it often face resistance, internal and external, yet most never even question whether they are truly awake or merely operating on autopilot. They wake up, go to work, fulfill obligations, engage in surface-level conversations, and repeat the cycle. And when discomfort arises, when a sense of unease creeps in, they numb it with distractions, mistaking movement for progress, busyness for purpose. This illusion of control is reinforced by the mind's tendency to seek patterns and predictability. The ego craves certainty, mistaking familiarity for safety. But the universe does not operate under such rigid structures. It moves in flux, in cycles, in the continuous dance of creation and destruction. The mystical traditions of both East and West have long spoken of this. True wisdom comes not from grasping for control, but from surrendering to the natural flow of existence. The more one resists uncertainty, the more suffering arises. The attempt to control life's unfolding is like trying to hold on to water. The tighter the grip, the more it slips through the fingers. Nietzsche spoke of the individual's tendency to inherit outdated values, blindly following doctrines without ever questioning their origins. He warned of the dangers of living a life dictated by narratives imposed from the outside, rather than one forged from inner clarity. The unawakened mind follows the easiest route, the familiar path of least resistance, mistaking it for choice. But true freedom does not come from controlling every variable in life. It comes from awareness, from recognizing that many of our thoughts, beliefs, and habits are simply pre-programmed responses, not conscious decisions. The first step to reclaiming one's path is not to resist this truth, but to see it clearly. And once one sees, there is no turning back. Once the illusion is broken, one can no longer pretend to be blind. But this awakening is only the beginning. Realizing the extent of one's conditioning raises an even deeper question. If so much of what we believe is inherited, then who are we beneath it all? What remains when all borrowed identities are stripped away? The answer lies in the process of individuation, the journey to uncover the true self beneath layers of illusion. To break free from unconscious conditioning is not to become someone new, but to return to the core of who one has always been. This is the essence of individuation, a term Carl Jung used to describe the lifelong process of becoming one's true self. It is not a journey of addition, but of subtraction, removing the layers of societal expectations, inherited beliefs, and false identities that obscure the authentic being within. But this path is not easy. The mind clings to familiarity, the ego resists change, and the world encourages conformity. Yet true freedom lies beyond these obstacles, in the vast and uncharted territory of self-discovery. Most people never embark on this journey. They settle for comfort, mistaking routine for meaning and stability for purpose. But for those who feel an inner pull, a quiet yet persistent voice urging them to look deeper, the search for truth becomes inevitable, and once it begins, it cannot be undone. The individual starts to question everything. Are my desires truly mine? Do my beliefs serve me, or do they merely control me? Am I living in alignment with my essence, or am I wearing a mask crafted by others? These questions, though unsettling, are the doorway to transformation. They are the signals that the soul is waking up. Jung saw individuation as the reconciliation of all aspects of the self, the conscious and the unconscious, the rational and the intuitive, the shadow and the light. To individuate is to move beyond binary thinking, beyond simplistic notions of good and bad, beyond the rigid structures imposed by culture. The mystical traditions of various philosophies echo this, teaching that truth is not found in absolutes, but in the ability to hold contradictions within oneself without being fractured by them. The universe itself is not static. It exists in constant transformation, and so too must the evolving self. Philosophers like Nietzsche and Schopenhauer saw this pursuit of self-realization as both liberating and isolating. To wake up is to step away from the crowd, to see what others do not, to move differently in a world that rewards uniformity. But this isolation is not loneliness. It is a necessary stage of integration. Many who walk the path of individuation feel an initial sense of detachment, as though the life they once lived no longer fits. This is because they are shedding what is false. The discomfort of transition is merely the price of authenticity. But what happens once the false layers are removed? What remains when illusions dissolve? A person who has individuated does not seek approval, because they no longer need external validation to confirm their existence. They do not act out of obligation, but out of alignment. They do not fear change because they have made peace with the fluid nature of the universe. Yet, individuation is not the end, it is the foundation. Once one has chosen themselves, once they have stepped into their truth, they must then learn how to navigate the world without losing that truth in the process. And that begins with understanding the importance of boundaries. For centuries, society has perpetuated the idea that prioritizing oneself is an act of selfishness. But what if the opposite were true? What if the greatest act of service to the world is to stand fully in one's own truth? Choosing oneself is not about rejecting others, nor is it about living in isolation. It is about alignment, about moving through life in a way that is authentic rather than performative. The tragedy of self-abandonment is that it breeds resentment, exhaustion, and disconnection. People who spend their lives bending to external expectations often wake up one day to find they do not recognize the person they have become. And what good is it to be loved by the world if, in the process, you have lost yourself? Carl Jung argued that the individual who suppresses their own nature for the sake of social approval is not virtuous but fragmented. They live divided, one part performing, the other yearning to be seen. But the cost of this division is high. A person who does not choose themselves lives under the constant weight of obligation, their energy drained by commitments that do not nourish their soul. And the irony? The world does not truly benefit from them because they are giving from a place of depletion, not abundance. In Eastern philosophy, the idea of self-actualization is central to harmony. Taoist teachings emphasize the importance of moving in accordance with one's own essence, not out of defiance, but out of understanding that when one operates in their natural state, everything around them falls into place. The river does not struggle to flow. It simply follows its course. and in doing so it nourishes everything in its path. This is the paradox. Those who choose themselves do not become selfish. On the contrary, they become more capable of connection, more capable of giving, because they are no longer giving from a place of sacrifice, but from a place of wholeness. Nietzsche warned of the dangers of living for the expectations of others. He spoke of the herd mentality, the collective pressure to conform, to live small, to silence the inner voice in favor of external approval. And yet, history remembers only those who dared to stand apart, those who chose themselves, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of self-honesty, are the ones who shaped the world. But this choice is not without consequence. Choosing oneself means confronting the discomfort of standing alone, even when the path is uncertain. It means risking rejection, misunderstanding, and even loss. But the alternative? A life half-lived. And so the question becomes, are you willing to make that choice? To step beyond the familiar scripts, to claim your own narrative, to exist fully as you are rather than as others expect you to be. Many hesitate at this threshold, fearing what they might lose. But what they fail to see is what they will gain. Clarity, freedom, and the ability to move through life with a sense of purpose unshaken by external forces. Yet, to walk this path requires more than just choice. It requires boundaries. Because without boundaries, even the strongest sense of self can be eroded by the demands of the external world. Those who do not set boundaries do not own their lives. They become vessels for other people's expectations, constantly adjusting, accommodating, and bending to fit the needs of those around them. At first, they may believe this makes them kind, generous, or selfless, but over time, something shifts. They begin to feel drained, resentful, disconnected from themselves, because every time they say yes when they mean no, they are betraying their own energy. And the universe, in its infinite wisdom, does not reward self-betrayal. It exposes it. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He saw that those who lack boundaries often struggle with a fragmented sense of self. They do not know where they end and where others begin. Their identity is shaped by the needs of those around them, rather than by their own internal truth. And the longer they suppress their needs, the more the unconscious rebels, through exhaustion, through anxiety, through a vague but persistent sense that something is wrong. Spirituality is not about saying yes to everyone. It is about knowing when to say no in order to protect the space where your true self can exist. Philosophers have long spoken of the importance of guarding one's energy. Nietzsche, for example, warned of the danger of allowing external forces to dictate one's internal state. He saw how people, in their desperation to be accepted, allowed themselves to be drained by those who sought to control, manipulate, or take without giving in return. But a person who has established boundaries does not fall into these traps. They understand that to preserve their essence, they must protect their time, their space, and their mental clarity. In Eastern traditions, this principle is deeply rooted in Taoist wisdom. Just as nature operates within balance, so too must the individual learn to regulate what they allow in and what they keep out. Many fear that setting boundaries will push people away. They worry they will be perceived as distant, selfish, or unkind. But in reality, boundaries do not destroy relationships. They refine them. They reveal who respects your energy and who only seeks to consume it. A person who truly values you will not demand that you sacrifice yourself to meet their needs. And those who do? They were never aligned with you to begin with. To set boundaries is to declare to the universe, I value myself enough to protect my energy. And in doing so, life responds by surrounding you with people who honor that value. But boundaries are not just about others. They are about you, about the promises you make to yourself and whether or not you keep them, about the standards you set for your own well-being, about whether you allow yourself to be constantly pulled in directions that drain you or whether you stand firm in what nourishes you. The deeper truth is this: when you protect your own energy, you move through life with clarity, presence, and purpose. And that is the foundation of something even greater, because when one person steps fully into their truth, it does not just change their life. It creates a ripple effect, awakening others to do the same. One of the greatest illusions of modern existence is the belief that personal growth is a solitary endeavor, that one's inner work, one's awakening, affects only the self, but the truth is far more profound. Every shift in consciousness creates a ripple. Every step toward authenticity reshapes the very fabric of the collective. Those who dare to break free from inherited patterns, who choose awareness over blind repetition, unknowingly give others permission to do the same. And in this way, individual transformation is not an isolated act. It is a force that reshapes the universe itself. Carl Jung understood that when one person integrates their shadow, they do not just heal themselves, they heal generations of conditioning that came before them. Every unconscious pattern broken, every inherited belief questioned, every self-imposed limitation shattered. These are not just personal victories, they are shifts in the collective unconscious. The moment one person steps fully into their truth, they become a living example that another way is possible. And those around them, whether consciously or unconsciously, begin to feel the pull of that same awakening within themselves. History has shown this time and time again. The great thinkers, the revolutionaries, the mystics, none of them set out to change the world. They simply refused to live by a script that was not their own. Their very existence became a catalyst. Nietzsche spoke of the Übermensch, the individual who transcends societal conditioning, who no longer conforms for the sake of comfort, who creates their own values rather than inheriting them blindly. And though he framed this as a deeply personal journey, the reality is that such an individual does not move through the world unnoticed. Their energy shifts the atmosphere. Their presence awakens something dormant in those who have long been asleep. But this kind of transformation comes with responsibility. To wake up is to realize that every action, every thought, every vibration we emit influences the world around us. Spiritual traditions have echoed this sentiment for centuries. Taoist philosophy speaks of the uncarved block, the individual in harmony with their essence who, by simply existing in their natural state, influences the flow of all things. The interconnected nature of reality ensures that no personal evolution remains confined to the individual. The moment one person aligns with their truth, the entire universe subtly recalibrates. And so the question is no longer just about personal growth, it is about legacy. It is about what kind of energy one chooses to contribute to the world. Will one continue the cycles of unconscious living, or will one become the point where those cycles break? The moment a person truly chooses themselves, not just in fleeting moments, but as a way of being, they become a beacon, one that does not seek to convince, but simply radiates truth. And in doing so, they invite others to do the same. Because when one person awakens, the whole world begins to stir. So now the question is, will you keep following the script written for you, or will you finally reclaim your own story? The moment you choose yourself, the entire structure of your reality shifts. You stop living for approval, you stop being controlled by unconscious patterns, and you finally start moving in alignment with who you truly are. But awareness is just the first step. What matters now is what you do with it. What part of today's discussion resonated with you the most? Have you ever felt trapped by expectations that weren't really yours? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this video brought you any insights, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Speaking of next steps, if you're ready to go even deeper into the hidden forces shaping your mind and the universe around you, I've got another video waiting for you right here. Click on it now and let's keep unraveling the layers of reality together. I'll see you there. This is Celestial Truths. Until next time.